Let's start with the obligatory hello YouTube. So this is mine and my wife's 2013 Fiat 500 Abarth. We bought it a couple months ago and it came up for its first oil change last weekend at 16,000 miles. It was an oil change, an air filter change, and also a cabin air filter change. And so I'll kind of talk a little bit about those in separate videos. But I want to talk about the oil change because this car does have some quirks to an oil change, as a lot of cars do. And I found a lot of helpful videos, but I didn't find a single video that captured everything that I thought was useful. So I just kind of want to consolidate that here, and we'll talk about that way. First, let me talk about the oil and filter. Full synthetic oil is used. I believe the car requires 540, and it does ask for synthetic oil, and I did do that. And then as far as the filter, I went with the MOPAR filter. I went to an AutoZone and it was like $20 just for their base purelator. I got the MOPAR filter off of Rock Auto for around $8. There was some shipping involved. I can't tell you exactly what it costs because I bought all three filters together, but there again, I will say engine oil filter, engine air filter, and cabin air filter all shipped to me from Rock Auto for about $32. So I think that's pretty hard to beat. Let me start by talking about the tools, the array of tools that you'll need. It's not a lot, but it can be a little unique. And so going by the procedure, the first thing that you're actually going to do is remove a plastic air dam under the car. And I'm not going to show these steps. Most people probably have seen, you know, how to actually change oil many times if you haven't done it yourself. So there shouldn't be any problem. So we'll just talk about the steps here. You want a 10 mil socket to remove that plastic air dam underneath there. There are 6 bolts that hold it on. So that's the first step. Once you've gotten it off, you will need to remove the oil drain plug. Now there is a crossbar under the car that is in the way there. So you'll need a small extension, 2 or 3 inches, and then a 13 mil socket for that. And probably the weirdest part about this car is the oil filter change. It's in a bad location, it's hard to get to. So what you're going to need for that is a 27 mil socket and at least a 10-inch extension. Also a knuckle will probably, this knuckle joint will do you a lot of favors. And finally, you'll want another smaller 10 mil socket to remove an electronic sensor to help get the filter out, and I will show that in just a minute. So the first step is, if you look up under here, up underneath the car, starting from the very front and going to just behind the rear wheel, there is a plastic air dam. As I said, 10 millimeter bolts will remove that. Pay attention at the front to how there's a couple of layers of tabs that stack in the right orientation. Just pay attention to how you take that off so you know how it goes back on. Take that off, set it aside. Once you've gotten it apart, then of course you will undo your oil drain plug. That is the 13 mil socket. Let everything drain out. So I forgot to mention this in the video, but I wanted to go ahead and add it here. That oil will drain out straight onto that crossbar I mentioned earlier. So be aware of that and plan for it. It won't go absolutely everywhere, but it will widen out your flow. Just make sure that you account for that, and you should have no problem catching all of it. The weird part is the oil filter, which is in this cap straight down in there. It's that there. And as you can see, it's pretty difficult to get to. Now, the Fiat official procedure is actually to remove this whole airbox unit, which you don't want to do. It's kind of a pain, and even other videos I've seen have even said not only do you have to get this off, but they usually had to take the intake tube for the turbo off as well. That's just more of a hassle than it needs to be. So you can, with a little work, get it out through there. As I said, that top plastic nut there is a 27 mil. Then you'll want that knuckle because it's in there at kind of a weird angle, and then also about a 10-inch extension. With that, you can take it off no problem. The one other key thing that I would say is if you look right here, there's this sensor. And the way that this car is, I could not quite get that cap. It looks like it'll just come right out of there, but I could not quite get it out without removing the sensor. But that's just a little 10 mil bolt. It even has a Phillips head if that's more convenient for you. You pop that off and you can work that cap up through there. I think I had to put a little sideways pressure on this air box, but you can see it moves pretty well. Got it out no problem. The filter then clips into that cap, which makes it really easy to get back down in there. That's nice. And so that's about it for that. Once you get that back on, of course, make sure you've got it on and snug. Make sure your oil drain plug is snug. And once you have both of those, go ahead and fill it up with oil. 4 quarts is what it requires. Mine took right at 4 quarts. This car has probably the easiest to read dipstick I've ever seen. It was great. It's at the very end, you have a little hash section. You just want to make sure that it's below the top of that hash section and above the bottom. And other than that, that's pretty much it. So in the end, make sure that you've got that sensor back in place that I showed. Make sure your cap is on tight. Make sure you've put your drain plug back in tight. And then make sure that you put that little air dam back on. And once you've done that, you should be good to go. Another video I saw was it was the next, I don't know, generation or whatever, I think 2015 and up, whenever they went to the digital gauge cluster, it had an actual like mileage timed oil light that came on. Ours has not done that yet, so I don't know if it will or not, but the procedure to reset that, if you have one of those, turn the car on and within 10 seconds, press the gas pedal 3 times. That should reset that. Simple as that. If you have any questions, throw them down in the comments. I'll try and keep up with that because I know I had some questions when I was trying to get through this first time. But after you've done it once, it should be pretty straightforward, and I hope this is a helpful video.